Our land is a critical resource. We rely on it for our food and water, our health and well-being, but it is under pressure. Humans, through the energy we use, the ways we live, produce food and use our land, are adding heat-trapping gases to the atmosphere, causing global warming and affecting the global climate. This changing climate is also affecting our land. We are experiencing a loss of biodiversity unlike anything we've seen before, and climate change is adding to this pressure.
What happens to the land surface affects climate at the same time as climate affects land. So what we do now on the Earth's surface is crucially important in terms of affecting future climate.
Over time, humans have changed the way we use our land. Today, we use more than 3/4 of available land for crops, pasture, cities, managed forests, and infrastructure.
So I think that there's a real human dimension to this that this report brings out. There's an economic dimension to this. There's a livelihood dimension to this. I think it really helps us understand what are the negative impacts that we are going to continue to have on our society if we don't start addressing it.
Unsustainable land management practices and the effects of climate change have contributed to widespread land degradation, desertification, and challenges to food security. Land currently absorbs 29% of the carbon dioxide that humans emit into the atmosphere. But when land is degraded, it becomes less productive, restricting what can grow and reducing the soil's ability to absorb carbon. Today, 44% of methane emissions come from land, while 25 to 30% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from the food system, which is the path that food travels from the farm to consumers' tables. These emissions contribute to climate change.
So plants take up carbon dioxide when they grow, and when they die, they lose that carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. So anything we do on land like deforestation or reforesting or agriculture changes the carbon in the vegetation and soils. So overall, those agricultural and forestry activities that we do on land contribute to about 23% of all greenhouse gas emissions that are caused by humans.
Emissions of powerful heat-trapping gases also arise from agricultural activities related to ruminant animals, such as cattle or sheep, and the use of fertilizers. In our dryland areas, land degradation takes the form of desertification, reducing the ability of ecosystems to provide for us as they once did. Covering over 46% of our global land, drylands are home to 3 billion people.
Quand on parle par exemple de la dégradation des terres, quand on dit par exemple, quand on parle de l'écosystème terrestre, quand on parle de la terre, sur la terre, regardez tout ce qui est utile pour les populations. Imaginez un peu combien de personnes dépendent des produits qu'on tire de la terre. Et imaginez que ces produits-là, ces activités-là peuvent soit dégrader la terre ou alors peuvent être impactées par les changements climatiques. Donc, ces différentes activités qui se trouvent sur la terre sont sous l'influence, on va dire, du climat à certains moments.
Increased numbers of droughts for longer periods of time will have a devastating impact on already water-scarce drylands. Decreasing agricultural outputs and loss of biodiversity in these areas will lead to increased land degradation.
As climate continues to change in the future, we expect more extreme events happening more frequently and more intense.
The crops we grow for food also form a crucial part of this land-climate connection, with climate change making a challenging situation worse. Warming, changing rain patterns, and more extreme events, such as heat waves, extreme precipitation events, or drought, are affecting our food security. In some regions, crop yields of maize and wheat have already declined. In some regions, climate change has already resulted in lower animal growth rates and livestock productivity, caused changes to infestations of pests and diseases, and affected food security in drylands. However, in other regions, particularly at higher latitudes, yields of some crops have increased. At the same time, a growing global population with greater spending power and increased demands for animal-sourced foods are putting our food systems under pressure.
Our climate is changing and it has impact on our food production. But that's not only the case. The way we are eating has changed. We eat a lot of meat and other high calorie dense product which is not good for our health and also for the planetary health.
The good news is there's a great many things we can do to tackle climate change, climate adaptation on land and support food security and avoiding desertification and degradation.
The land we are already using could feed the world in a changing climate. It could also provide organic matter or biomass to be turned into renewable energy sources, such as biogas or biofuel, which would help to mitigate climate change. But it's going to take urgent and far-reaching action from all of us. Converting large areas of land for both afforestation and reforestation, and for bioenergy crops, is one of our options. But there are risks that come with this. Bioenergy production and afforestation could increase competition for land, affecting food security and land degradation, while monocultural bioenergy crops could lead to a further loss of biodiversity. We can also work towards avoiding, reducing, or reversing land degradation and desertification. This can be achieved by reducing deforestation and forest degradation and implementing sustainable land management solutions. This would help to improve soil fertility and carbon storage, as well as agricultural productivity and food security. By choosing to consume a balanced diet with more plant-based foods and reducing the 25 to 30% of food that is lost or wasted, we can also play a role in reducing emissions from the food system. This would help to improve our health and take pressure off our land, making more land area available for afforestation, for bioenergy crops, or to restore and preserve natural ecosystems.
Indigenous people across the planet have been living in balance with nature for many, many generations. We have a lot to learn from them.
Women have a disproportionate vulnerability to the impacts of climate change, and their inclusion in land ownership and management decisions is often constrained. Empowering women can bring benefits to household food security and sustainable land management. There are many options, but acting now is crucial. Failing to act now will mean fewer land-based options in the future to address our growing land and climate challenges.
If we miss the opportunities, and if we go down a path where we don't take good care of our land, we'll have much fewer options, and climate change could be accentuated.
Better land management can play a role in tackling climate change, but it can't do it all.
So we can't solve the climate change problem without dealing with land emissions, and the uptake of carbon by land. At the same time, that we can't use land to avoid doing things about fossil fuel, industrial emissions, other types of emissions.
It is through an effective mix of policies, markets, institutions, and governance across the globe and emissions reductions from all sectors that will limit global warming to 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius.
It really provides a positive message to say, okay, it's in our hands to change management of land, and it's also in our hands to change our diets. And through these changes, we can really contribute to climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation.
Protecting our land, our home, is going to take urgent action from all of us.